Welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for anything and everything sports. Sit back, enjoy, and here's your host, Troy.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Troy Talk Podcast, your home for USC sports. I cannot believe the regular season has come to a close. We've been through a lot of ups and downs this year, but at least we finished it off with a victory over the little brother across town, the UCLA Bruins. Today, we're going to do a brief game recap, talk about the Lane Lemon disciplinary issue drama, whether we should call this season a successful season, and much more. If you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. All right, let's get it rolling. So I want to start this episode off by saying what an amazing feeling it was to be back on campus and specifically back in the Coliseum. It really felt like I never left. I mean, I grew up going to every USC game for 20 plus years, and it was basically my life. It was basically my kind of identity growing up. So it was really nice to kind of just feel the atmosphere again. Obviously, it was even nicer that we won. But I'll be the first to admit, I was probably the most disappointed in us throughout the whole year in that first half as any game. And there was a lot to critique, and I'm sure we'll get into all that, but it really finally set in that the season was basically over, and we finished 9-3. Now, as I mentioned before the season, that was my season preview prediction. I said that was going to be a successful season, right? I predicted exactly what would happen. We'd lose to Oregon and Notre Dame, and we'd split either Illinois and Nebraska. Now, we should have won the Illinois game, so probably based off of the season, probably should have been 10-2. Don't think we deserve Notre Dame or Oregon, but I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because we kind of progressed from blowing games against inferior competition like we did last year and kind of flipped the polar opposite of being down in the first half and coming back in the second half. But we're still not quite at the level of the elite teams like the Oregon and Notre Dame. And that it just begs the question, will we ever get there? And I think there's a lot of positives, and I'll talk about that in a second, that we're heading on that trajectory. But don't get me wrong, it still sucks to lose to Oregon and Notre Dame and just realize that we aren't quite where we need to be yet. But I mean, the question I have for you guys before I kind of get into it, and let me know down in the comments below what you think, is would you consider this season a successful season? I think the answer for me, it has to be yes, right? I think if I'm being objective, the manner in which we did it was not always the most palatable, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth at times, but we played down to our competition a lot. And honestly, the majority of our games, really the only two games aside from the non-conference schedule that I thought we played really well, or at least looked dominating, was the Michigan game. That was probably one of our best games of the season. And then the Michigan State game, although the score was a little wonky and I think there was some weird stuff that happened that game, I thought we absolutely blew them out of the water and dominated them. You could probably also argue second half of the Northwestern game was really, really good. But really, two games were the only time I saw us be like, wow, that was a really, really good football team we put on the field. And even in those games, there were parts of those I could nitpick probably. But I mean, that's probably the moral of the story, right? We can always nitpick. We have high expectations. I think the ideal situation of this year would have been a 9-3 season, which would have been, I still think, realistic, where we blow out most of the teams and then maybe lose a close one to Illinois where we play okay, but they just played really well. They beat us. And then we're competitive with Oregon and Notre Dame. And truthfully, I thought we were competitive against Oregon and Notre Dame. We just aren't at the level quite yet. And we were not, I don't want to say perfect because obviously, of course, we weren't perfect. And I can't expect us to be perfect, but we weren't even close to being perfect. And you need to be close to perfect to pull off those upsets, especially on the road. But the reality of the situation is we won 9 games with a team that probably at the talent level that we're currently at, I think that probably is where we should be at. I mean, 10 wins probably would have been little, I'm going to say unrealistic. I mean, coming in prior to the season, expecting 10 wins with the talent that we have, it's just not there, right? We have some really good players, Bakai Lemon, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look position by position, we are not really, in my opinion, a 10-win team in a Big Ten conference. We did show the ability, as I said, to come back and overcome adversity, which is something we couldn't do last year. And I think that's credit to Lincoln Riley, credit to D'Anton Lynn for his second half defenses, and credit to Jaden Mayava for leading his team. We likely have a Bolitnikov winning wide receiver, which is pretty cool. And we have a chance to win 10 games, in the bowl game. So a lot of those are positives. And the end of the story here is it is hard to win football games just in general. It's just very difficult, especially with the injuries that we had this year, to overcome the adversity we did. I think 9 wins is something to be proud about. And look, we have the number 1 recruiting class coming in. It's likely to finish that way. And there's a lot to be excited about for the future. As far as the game recap, let's just jump into it. We can kind of intertwine the Lane and Lemon stuff at the beginning of this. But man, what a start to the game. I mean, we moved right down the field exactly how I expected us to. King Miller was just running hard. It was run, just kept running all over him. Really good third down conversion to Snook Hines over the middle. That Lincoln Riley staple of the drag route behind the line of scrimmage showed that it's a pseudo screen. It's beautiful execution. 9 times out of 10. And we looked really good. And I thought it was going to be a blowout. We even stopped them on a 3-and-out the following possession. But then when we came back on, right? So now I'll interject with the Lane and Lemon stuff. Initially, I'm like, what could possibly have been that bad to, keep Lemon and Lane out of this game, or at least initially out of this game? I don't know exactly what happened. Rumors are it had something to do after the Oregon game, some incident, whether it was just some kind of shenanigans going on. I'm not sure. They were late to a plane, like late to leaving for the plane. I don't know. But moral of the story is Lincoln Riley found it bad enough to keep them out for a whole quarter. And I thought, obviously the first possession, we drove right down the field, scored on them, had our backups in. I think it was Jaden Richardson, a lot of, I think even Jay Fair was in, Tinook Hines, and also I think Josiah Zamora too. So the walk-on, or I don't know if he has a scholarship. But one of the story is we had backups. We had people, not to be disrespectful, that were on the level of UCLA's players. And we still drove down the field. We were still successful. And I think part of that was because that drive was scripted. So I was hoping, okay, leave them out for a drive. They got the punishment. Awesome. Let's get back to beating down UCLA. So on that second drive, when they didn't come back in, admittedly, I got a little bit worried. Obviously, we went down the field, drove down pretty well, and then stalled, and then the wheels fell off after that. But, I mean, look, part of me is like, hey, I want to see Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, their last game in the Coliseum, likely ball out, have a good game, blow out UCLA, right? That's the first thing that jumps into my mind. Second thing is, okay, I have to take a step back and say, if they actually did mess up, broke a team rule, and there were set established rules, Lincoln Riley has to, for the team culture's sake, implement a disciplinary policy that is equal for everybody, right? You can't treat your stars different than your walk-ons. So I do credit him for sitting them out, at least punishing them accordingly. Now, the question I have is, did it need to be a whole quarter? Was it bad enough to where you needed to do a whole quarter? I don't know. I don't know what it was. I think you probably could have accomplished the disciplinary and the message that you would have sent with just a drive and just say like, hey, you're not bigger than the team. Get back out there and let's beat on some Bruins, right? But he ultimately chose a whole quarter. And I think, I don't want to make excuses, but I mean, not having Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon definitely killed the momentum of that second drive. It wasn't a scripted drive. We kind of stalled out, closer to the red zone, block kick. And, like as I said, the wheels kind of fell off. So, yeah, I think it really eliminated any chance of a blowout. And I was really hoping this game was a blowout. As I predicted, the score was going to be a kind of a 48-17, I think is what I said. And then after that second drive, I knew it was not happening. Yeah. Let's jump to UCLA, then got the ball back after the block kick, marched down the field, nickel and dimed us. And it really seemed D'Anton Lynn was okay with it. And obviously he's okay with it because it happens every game this season. I will point out that Nico only had 5 yards per attempt, which is very bad. So D'Anton Lynn did a good job of negating his effectiveness. And he was also only limited to, I think, 15 yards rushing, which now I know sacks count against quarterback rushing yards, so that's a little bit skewed, but still limiting him to 15 yards rushing and 5 yards per attempt is, if you just looked at that in a vacuum, didn't watch the game, you'd be like, wow, he did a pretty good job there. So he's not stupid. He knows how to adjust. He obviously does it in the second half. He just really seems to like to lull teams to sleep and limit big plays and then hit them with the adjustment in the second half and completely shut them down. So, I mean, the question is, why can't that just be a thing that happens all the time? I don't know the answer to that question. If I did know the answer, maybe I'd be making a lot more money coaching football, but I don't. But at the end of the day, he only allowed 10 points. So it's not pretty and it's frustrating and it drives me nuts watching sometimes, and just some of the scheme doesn't make sense. But at the end result, it's just, for whatever reason, it's not that bad. And it boggles my mind. Anyway, after that, another good drive. We drove down the field again, stalled, and missed a kick. Ryan Sari just kind of seems to be in his head a little bit. And, after a really, really strong start to the season, just been really shaky the last couple games. And I think we let them march down the field again, it just felt like that first half went by so fast. And it was already like about to be, 40 seconds left. I think they tried to draw us off sides, which was kind of weird that they didn't go for it there, in my opinion. Kind of playing not to lose instead of playing to win, I think, for UCLA's perspective. Kick the field goal. We're down 10-7 going into halftime, capped off by a 3-man rush against Jaden and just gets sacked. And that's just inexcusable. So I was very demoralized, upset going into that halftime. I was just on my phone playing a game the whole 20 minutes because I just wanted to go by as fast as possible and get back in the second half and hopefully kind of rebound. And unfortunately, it didn't really start out that way. We started off with, they started off with the ball. We stopped them 3-and-out. I'm like, okay, cool. This is where the offense takes over. We blow them out. Fortunately, an even worse 3-and-out where we give them the ball back. And I think I want to say they drove it down. This was kind of I think they were on like the 40-yard line or so. Probably are trying to get into field goal position again, go up 13-7. And G-Day has a great sack, puts them out of field goal position. They punt it back to us, and that's when the offense started rolling. I had a really good run game. We went with tempo, which I think we play our best offense when we have tempo. Capped off with the Mekhi Lemon touchdown pass. Really beautiful throw, beautiful catch. And I think that might have been the catch that solidifies the Blitnikoff for him. And I know you're like, wow, 32 yards, 1 reception, 1 touchdown. That solidifies the Blitnikoff. Well, Jeremiah Smith didn't have a big game, had a very similar game to Mekhi Lemon, actually. Carnell Tate, obviously, I don't even think he's a semifinalist, but he didn't have a big game either. I think the only opposition is Skylar Bell out of UConn, and he does have slightly better stats than Mekhi Lemon, but I would be shocked if, with what Mekhi Lemon has put on tape against vastly superior competition this year, that he does not get the nod over Skylar Bell, despite Skylar Bell having a little bit more stats, but UConn just hasn't played anybody all season. So I just don't see how you could give it to him over Mekhi. Getting back to the game, let's see. We stopped him again and got that electric punt return from Mekhi Lemon. I mean, I think it shows that if we played to actually make that happen more often, I think Lincoln Riley just likes to catch the ball, limit turnovers, limit any bad stuff from happening, limit injuries, and just get his offense on the field. But when a punt, you get it into Mekhi Lemon's hands, he's a good enough punt returner to make that happen. And it kind of looked like a Dory Jackson running down the sidelines, really electrified the Coliseum, and gave the offense the momentum to score again. I will say, I just wanted to point out the Coliseum since first game since 2019, since I was there. Vastly different team now and atmosphere than in 2019. Really, really good atmosphere. I mean, even in the first half when we were really bad, it was still rocking. Second half was awesome. We forced, delay games, false starts. It's been a while since the Coliseum was that loud, or at least I've experienced it that loud. So I want to give a shout out to the USC fans that were there. It was a really, really cool atmosphere, and I was really lucky to be there. Let's see. I think we, after that, scored on a Lake McCree little drop-off touchdown pass. Really good play call from Lincoln in the red zone. I think when you give him tight ends in the red zone, he just knows exactly what to do with it, and he's been very successful with it. And then I think we stopped them in an obvious passing situation. Our defense looks so much better when the other team has to pass the ball. UCLA was coming out in a lot of like trips personnel, a lot of 11 personnel even, and it was interesting, right? Because it's kind of different than we usually face in the Big Ten. I think when our defensive ends kind of just bull rush and go for the quarterback and not have to worry about the rush, I mean, it's obviously they do better getting to the quarterback, but we just look vastly superior. I mean, it happened a little bit in the end of the Northwestern game, Michigan State game, all that stuff when we weren't worried about the run and we knew that they were down and had to pass. We get to the quarterback and do well. I mean, G-Day looked good. We'll talk about the position group a little bit later. And then to finish the game, King Miller busted a huge run, a little bit of like a just off tackle, or might have been inside the left tackle run, barely was even touched, solidified the 29-10 victory. Really cool 2-point conversion. Don't care what any of the UCLA fans are complaining about. That's a walk-on quarterback getting a chance to go out onto the field, make a play, and he'll remember that for the rest of his life. He's been a really good Trojan, always is next to Lincoln Riley with the clipboard and the vest, and has probably contributed a lot more to this team than people really understand. I wanted to give a shout out to Gage Roy. He really had his moment in the Coliseum there. And then lastly, stopped them on the goal line, somehow beat them by 19 points and only allowed 10. I don't know how we do it, but we managed to keep doing it. So my quick summary, my thoughts on the game. Obviously, good win, beat UCLA, go 9-3. I really want to be upset with Lynn. I know, I understand where you guys are coming from. I get it. And I think his scheme against better competition has been lacking this year. And even against inferior competition earlier on in the game has been lacking. But he somehow finds a way to just make it to where the end result does not look that bad, right? We pretty obviously got better when we went down to 3 defensive linemen, 1 edge rusher, played G-Day and Devin Tompkins more as a 5 technique. We just seemed to get better pass rush. Having Lucas and Crawford or Lucas and Shelby on the field at the same time just didn't seem to show as many good results, and I don't really know why that is. And I mean, in concept, right? I don't mind bend don't break. I don't think that's really a problem. It's just when there's third downs, and I think we saw it a lot last year. Jansen Lynn was so good on third downs and getting off the field. So that bend don't break, even if it didn't look good, at that 40-yard line, at that 30-yard line, he would get stops and either limit to field goals or just stop him and get him off the field and punt. I think I don't mind it. We just were really, really bad on third down to start the game in that first half. It just seemed like they were running basic high school like personnel and schemes and plays, and it was just like roll out, throw to the sideline at the sticks, and we just were not guarding it correctly. And obviously we tweaked that a little bit and stopped them, but I think that was kind of the biggest takeaway I had from the beginning of the game, or at least third down conversions really jumped out at me. And I think this game also showed that the run game, we're only going to go as far as the run game lets us go. If we do not run the football well, we usually don't win the game. I think the Iowa game is probably the only example of us not running well and still winning the football game, but it sounds pretty self-explanatory and like, duh, but that really needs to be a focal point. And I think with the implementation of more tight ends in the game, it's making the run game a little bit more successful. And that's why it's just King Miller's had such a good year. Despite being a walk-on thrust onto a role that's not easy, really shown that he has what it takes. And I think with, hopefully Waymon Jordan coming back and all the talent that we're going to bring back next year, the run game should be even better next year. But we have momentum. We have a recruiting class. I even saw Rock Hill in the bookstore. He was getting a couple pictures taken with him. So I'm pretty impressed that, I'm not sure if he was wearing a badge or something, but if USC fans could recognize recruits, good on you for being a recruiting degenerate and being able to recognize faces. But thought that was really cool. Really can't wait for this bowl game because we're going to see youngsters. I always love seeing the rotation. Hopefully more Marquise Gallegos, D. Reddick, Alex Graham, all those people, and really see kind of a preview of what we got next year. Because I doubt, Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane aren't going to play. Maybe Eric Gentry, maybe not. We'll see. Definitely no Kamari Ramsey. Definitely no Elijah Page. So hopefully we get to see a little bit more rotation. All right, let's jump to position grades. So quarterback, I'm going to give him a B. I thought Jaden's been solid all year and was solid today too. Stats were pretty good. It was like 21 out of 29 for 250 and 2 touchdowns. I think the touch on his deep ball was a little off to start, but really honed it in with that Mekhi Lemon throw and was just really managing the offense really well, especially with poor pass protection. I still think he needs to run more. I'm going to keep saying that. You guys are going to keep saying it too. He's so successful when he does it. And I just don't know. I don't know if it's a mental thing with him or Riley doesn't want him to get hurt. I don't know what it is, but he needs to be running more. Running backs. The fact that I'm starting this off with a B and then an A minus, you would think that this offense was lights out and it just technically wasn't. Although we did move the ball on Saturday, we just weren't really effective in the red zone in the first half. But anyway, King Miller ran super hard. And when he was given lanes, he made the most out of it. Really good job catching the ball today. I wanted to kind of shout that out because that's not the strong part of his game, but on a couple screen passes, he made some stuff happen there. Really good job from Riley Wormley. Awesome to see him coming out of the backfield, caught a pass. He looks like he could be a really good third down back going into the future. Maybe give Waymo a little bit of, because Waymo's good out of the backfield, but just like so he doesn't have to be on the field as much and kind of save him for the running situations. I'd be totally happy with Riley Wormley, and even James Johnson caught a ball today. Really showed that we have the ability to utilize the running back out of the backfield, kind of like we did with Woody Marks last year. All right, so going to the wide receivers and tight ends, I'm going to give them a B, and that's going to sound really high, but I thought the tight ends had probably one of their best games this game. Nick McCray is working his way to possibly getting drafted. Been an awesome Trojan. I'm really glad he stayed 5 years. I wasn't so sure at the beginning of this year if I was like, maybe we just need to see what Walker Lyons has and what the other guys have. But Lake was one of the most reliable Trojans throughout the whole year. So really glad he got a touchdown in his last game as a Trojan. Walker Lyons probably had his best game as a Trojan, catching the ball, blocking. I think he had one of the higher PFF grades on the team. We even saw Nella Tupou, who number 88, true freshman, got I think like 8 or 10 snaps today. Even Riley threw out a little bit of the 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends on the field at the same time. And I thought it was pretty successful. I don't know what the stats showed, but I like it. I think we have really good pass catching tight ends, and it makes our run game even more threatening. Whenever Riley has like tight ends in motion and a lot of moving parts, and it seems he likes to do that, the more tight ends are on the field, it's the more like crisscrossing, play action, stuff like that. It really seems like he thrives there, and I'm just really excited to see that next year because obviously Mark Bowman's going to get a lot of snaps next year, and if we see Mark Bowman, Walker Lyons, and Nella Tupou on the field at the same time, I'd be really awesome. All right, jumping to the offensive line. C+. Honestly, part of me says that this is a little high because I thought the pass protection was bad at times, although it seemed like it kind of improved a little bit towards the end of the game. Run blocking was either really, really good or really, really bad. A lot of times, they either maybe it was just a run blitz, but UCLA stopped us for negative yards, which really shouldn't be happening against as bad a defense as them. But they kind of just sold out on the run. We kind of just didn't really have an answer to it. But there were a lot of times where King Miller had big holes and really made the most of it. I wanted to point out that I love Tobias Raymond. I think he's had a really good year at guard. I just do not think he's a tackle, and especially not a left tackle. So we need to figure that out. I don't know if it's Kenai Pepe next year, if it's a transfer next year, but we cannot have Tobias Raymond be our left tackle next year. I just don't think that that's really, really limiting our. Obviously, Elijah Page is going to be there, but just with I guess what I'm trying to say is if Elijah Page gets hurt, right? I don't want Tobias Raymond to be the backup left tackle. So whether it's Kenai Pepe or somebody else, we need to figure that out. But really admirable job, all things considered, despite all the injuries. Shout out to them, I guess. Defensive line, I'm going to give them a B-. And again, may seem like a little high, maybe closer to a C+, because I thought pretty poor run defense the whole game. UCLA actually ran the ball on us pretty well, which is not good because their run offense is really, really bad. But the pass rush from the second quarter on, I think we finished with 4 sacks, and I said I wanted 4 to 5 sacks. Really showed flashes. I mean, G-Day showed really good pass rushing ability. I thought Braylon Shelby showed a lot of flashes, although he really struggled to kind of like wrap him up at times. I think he blew by Nico on one of them. And I mean, Anthony Lucas was a little quiet. Cam Crawford got washed out at times, especially on run defense. But I thought that was probably G-Day's best game as a Trojan. I'm so really excited. I think he's earned a starting spot next year. Devin Tompkins, we'll see. I mean, he's been such a good Trojan, works really hard. I just think we need to make sure we're playing him in the right spot, and that's that 5 technique. And I think he and G-Day kind of overlap, and I think G-Day's just better than Devin Tompkins. So maybe if it's kind of them rotating at the same spot next year, I think that might actually be more beneficial to us. As far as linebackers, I'm going to give him a C. I saw Eric Gentry actually had one of the higher PFF scores. I didn't really see it. I was kind of paying attention to the linebackers specifically, although obviously when you're at the game, it's not as good a angle as you see on TV. But I thought in coverage, we were just really, really bad on some of those rollouts, some of those flat passes, some of those easy passes that we should have kind of been expecting out of that UCLA offense, because that was such a cookie cutter offense. I just don't think we were in good coverage situations, and I don't know. We just weren't reading the plays super well. So it wasn't really the best showing, in my opinion. Not playing downhill enough. We're too worried about getting gashed, I think, missing our gaps and for big plays. And it's just very frustrating. Nice to see Matai Togiai out there. Wasn't super effective on his blitzes, but I do like that concept. He just obviously needs to bulk up, and Lynn needs to come up with a little bit better way of blitzing him, not just running him straight at, kind of like Mason Cobb was last year. We're just running at big linemen and not kind of confusing them, because he's really fast and really like long, kind of like Eric Gentry. Eric Gentry is really good at rushing the quarterback the vast majority of the time. So if we can get him to that level, I think we can utilize him really well. I just don't think he's probably an every down linebacker, kind of like Eric Gentry was this year. I don't know if his ceiling's that high, but I don't know. He definitely adds a unique element with his size and length to this defense. All right, going next, the defensive backs. I'll give him a C+. I mean, like I said, we held Nico to 5 yards per attempt. Didn't allow any really big plays through the air. Christian Pierce looked awesome, was hitting hard, and I thought was giving the defense some energy in that first half when we didn't have any. Really, I mean, he's solidified a starting role next year. I think that there's any doubt in my mind. Alex Graham had a great game. I think this was probably his first like big meaningful snap game and really showed out. And I think he's going to be our starting nickelback next year. A lot of rotation. Saw a little bit of Marquise Gallegos, a little bit of D. Reddick. So really cool to see that. I think Marquise Gallegos probably doesn't start next year because I think we figure out maybe it's Kennedy Urlacher at the strong safety. But I think he should get a lot of snaps. You know, I know we like to play a lot of 3 safety. So if that means Marquise Gallegos getting on the field a little bit more frequently, I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think whenever he's been on the field, he's shown that he belongs and needs to at least get a chance to show that next year. All right, special teams. I'm gonna give him a C+, and I'll tell you why. 2 missed kicks, obviously very bad. Ryan Sari I don't know what's going on with him, but really good kick return coverage, which is something we've struggled with, I guess, as far as yards allowed this year. And I thought we made a couple of really big plays that gave us good field position. And then also the punt return, that's something we haven't seen all year, and we saw it today, or saw it on Saturday, and that was something really good to see. Something we don't see very often, and I wish we saw a little bit more. All right, overall, I mean, it's another C performance. We still have not really put out a really good performance in a while, it seems like. Really slow start, really good finish. It's been like that all year. Should have blown them out, though. That team is not good. I mean, I'm not even sure anybody on that team starts for USC. Like, truthfully, maybe a linebacker if we're being nice, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to UCLA. I just mean that, like, for our expectations, we should be beating a team like that by a lot of points. And 19 points is great, but really should have been 30 plus with the personnel difference and just the chance that we had. But it's whatever. As far as players of the game, I'd probably give it to King Miller on offense. I thought he was really good. And then I could probably give it to, I think you'd probably have to give it to G-Day, although I shout out to Alex Graham, because I thought, for a true freshman, he looked the part. And as I said before, I would be shocked if he's not our starting nickelback. But got to give it to G-Day. 1.5 sacks, was an absolute menace and really kind of changed the momentum of the game for us. All right, so our last Troy Talk picks of the regular season. I'm sure we'll have some bowl stuff, but I don't know when exactly I will podcast that or put that on a podcast. But we finished the year 42-34, I believe, for around 4.5 units. Nothing super crazy, but that's about like a 50. I think it's like a 56% win rate. I don't know what that is. You guys can do the math. But 4.5 units in the positive. Can't complain about that. A little bit of a rough week on my part. We started off 1-1. We talked about that in the preview podcast. As far as the 5 picks we had going into this week, I think it was Mississippi State plus 7.5. That was a bad call on my part. They were never in that game. I really thought Ole Miss would kind of tank with all the Lane Kiffin talk. And I think probably the next game whenever they play is probably the chance to pick against them, because they are just in shambles right now going to the playoffs with Lane Kiffin choosing LSU. And next we had Air Force under 45.5 against Colorado State. That was a horrible pick by me. That was not even close. Unfortunately, both of their defenses are really bad, and they just scored a lot of touchdowns. I think there was like no field goals in the game, despite 60 plus points being scored, which is pretty crazy. Next, we had Kennesaw State minus 2.5. Got a little lucky there. Probably should have lost it, but Kennesaw was the better team and probably should have won in regulation earlier on in the game, but we almost blew that one. The moneyline parlay, unfortunately, did not get there as UTSA choked against Army. I don't know what happened there. I really felt confident about that one, and we just weren't able to pull it out. And then lastly, Fresno State minus 2.5. We did get the win there. Blowout victory against San Jose State. They are one of the most disappointing teams and worst teams this year. And Fresno State had a really solid year. So shout out to Coach Matt Entz there. All right, so just to recap, just wanted to say thank you again for all the support. I think we're hovering around 450 subscribers. Really excited about that. I'm hoping we have 4 videos coming out, I think, over the next month. And I'm hoping that by the time those 4 videos are out, by the end of the year, we get to that 500 sub goal. And just want to really say thank you for all the support. As far as what's coming up, I've kind of been, hinting at it the last couple podcasts. We're going to do 2 recruiting videos, 1 offense, 1 defense, recapping the class. So I'll probably record that in the next couple days and get it out for early signing day. And then also, I think we're going to do a college football playoff preview with a special guest. And then lastly, we're going to do the preview and recap podcast for, I think the bowl game is likely going to be around December 30th, around New Year's. So it'll be the same old podcast like usual. And then after that, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I might take a little break, might jump straight into basketball, might do some other things. I haven't figured it out. But either way, just really wanted to say thank you. It's been an awesome season. I mean, we've done preview recap for 12 weeks this year of football for USC. That's 24 podcasts. Time has flown. Loved all the comments you guys dropped, good and bad. Thank you for the engagement. It really, means a lot and helps the video out. So, even the offseason, you guys have been really good at supporting the podcast, and hopefully we have some cool topics to talk about, whether that be transfer portal stuff, personnel issue, coaching changes, whatever it is. If there's anything you guys want me to cover specifically in the offseason, just let me know in the comments down below, and I'm happy to kind of work it into the podcast. Pretty flexible in that regard. But yeah, just wanted to say thank you again, and I will see you again next.